Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'm going to have to broach the subject of the Conservatives voting to starve kids in poverty this Christmas with a look at a letter written by a Conservative MP to justify this, and I'm going to look at the statements of fact they give and tear them down because I'm sick of this now. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So very much off script this. For those who don't know, we had a situation earlier this year. Free school meals is given to kids in poverty. We have millions of kids in poverty. It at least allows them to have a decent meal at least once a day. Sometimes twice if a school runs a breakfast club as well. But over the school holidays, they don't get this. But the pandemic has shone a spotlight on this. And as it was coming up to summer, a lot of people were campaigning to allow these free school meals to continue over summer. The government resisted this. They said, no, absolutely not. And then they were forced into a U-turn and they had to do that. The same scenario has occurred now. People are campaigning for this to continue through Christmas. No, said the Conservatives. Now, again, you think to yourself, well, hang on a minute. You allowed them to eat during summer. Why will you not allow them to eat during Christmas, for goodness sake? And the whole thing is absolutely maddening. But they won't, and there was a vote in Parliament. It would have had no legal standing. It was an expression of parliamentary will. But that Labour put forward saying, look, let's continue this funding, and the Conservatives voted against it. Not absolutely everyone, but the vast majority of them voted against it. Now, there's a letter here from a Birmingham MP, one of the new MPs that was elected last December. And I'm going to go through this. It's a Gary Sambrook from Birmingham. Birmingham is very badly affected. It has an awful lot of kids who are in need of free school meals. This MP even suggests that he himself was a recipient. But I'm going to go through the letter bit by bit. Says, first of all, sorry I cannot attend tonight. Sadly, I have a prior engagement. I don't know what this is about. Do you know what? I'm going to guess it was a constituency group that invited the MP to come along to a public debate, and they went, oh no, I don't fancy any of that. It's not election year. I'm not talking to constituents. But that's speculation on my part. I do not know that. It says, below is a statement which can be read out on my behalf outlining my position on this issue. This is clearly a public meeting the MP does not want to go to. So the letter says, last night Parliament voted on Labour's motion on extending free school meals outside of term time. Yes. This government has extended free school meal eligibility to a further 50,000 children. Right, we'll take that first of all. The government has extended free school meal eligibility to a further 50,000 children. Does that mean it has expanded its capacity for providing free school meals? Not as such, no. I'll tell you what that means. That means that more children are in poverty under this Conservative government than before. They haven't lowered the bar for what is required to be classed as in poverty and in need of free school meals. They haven't been kinder on that front. The reason they have increased the number of free school meals given is not any policy of theirs. It is the fact that more children have been plunged into poverty as a result of this government. Don't bill that as a good thing. That's a bad thing. That more, tens of thousands more children need free school meals is not something to boast about. As someone who was on free school meals, absolute outrage you'd vote against it. When at school, I understand the benefit. Do you? You understand it and yet you still don't care? That again makes you sound worse. Much, much worse. You know, I understand the benefit they have to children when at school. Since the start of coronavirus, we have added over £9 billion to the welfare system. I'd like to know where all of that has gone. This has allowed us to, right, let's go through this now. Increase universal credit by £1,000 a year. Right, I'm going to go over something here. When Labour were last in government, now imagine a couple in a household on benefits that've got no work, no income at all. They would have got in job seekers allowance, a household income, just for job seekers allowance to cover bills and things like that, of £620 or £619. Today, 10 years on, inflation, all the rest of it, you'd think, oh, well, that'll have gone up, won't it? Right, 10 years on, that same household will get £594. After 10 years of inflation, 10 years of bills going up, 10 years of everything, this Conservative government are paying that household less. Don't give me, we're putting more in. You're not, you're taking it away. Compared to Labour, right? Just before I go through the rest of the stats, it says underneath this is all money that is going to families who are in need. You don't hear Labour talking about this. You do hear Labour talking about this, because Labour will be talking about what was in place 10 years ago when they were, or 10 and a half years ago now, when they were in power. And you know what? It's more than now. And I don't mean more in real terms. You know, it's a little bit more now with the Conservatives, but when you take inflation into account, it's actually less. No, it was actually more. This is disgusting. Then, right, let's go through this. These are some stats that people who've been watching my stuff recently will know I use. This is the way you need to frame these. So they say they've increased local housing allowance and created a £180 million fund to help struggling families with their rent. Oh, 180 million is how you phrase it. That sounds like a lot, doesn't it? Let's look at this. 180 million. So how much per family is that going to? Because I've had a little look, there appear to be 2.7 million families struggling with the rent. That amounts to £67 per family. So for this year, families struggling with their rent are going to get an extra £67 on average. How much rent does that cover exactly? For someone who cannot pay the rent because the government have knackered their local economy or told them they can't work and are not compensating them, what's that going to do for them? £67. Frame it like that. The whole year, this isn't just per week or anything like that, for the whole, potentially even for the whole pandemic. £67. How far is that going to go? Then they say created a £63 million fund for councils to use for local welfare assistance. I talked about this several months ago when Boris Johnson was trumpeting it. How far is this going to go? £63 million. There are 14.3 million people in poverty in this country. Government's own figure. That's the government's own definition of poverty. It's actually argued in real terms, you're talking 20 million. We'll use the government's figures, let's be fair. 14.3 million people in poverty. Again, this fund isn't per week or per month or anything. This is just a lump sum to cover the pandemic, however long it lasts. That's £4 per person. I have to use a quote from Charlie Wilson's What? Are you an infant? Are you trumpeting £4 per person in poverty as some great welfare fund? Grow up. Then it says award of £16 million to food charities. Now, I will bet you anything, a lot of that money is not actually going towards the charities really. It'll be filtered through private organisations. We basically know this. But let us assume that all went to good. £16 million. There are 8.4 million people in food poverty in this country. Now that is an eye-opener straight away. Of a population of 66 million, 8.5 million people do not know that they can get enough food to eat. In so much poverty that they cannot get enough food. That amounts to £2 a person. And again, this is not per week or per month. This is a lump sum. This is it. This is your pandemic fund. £2 a person to feed them. Are you joking? This is absolutely sickening. Disgraceful. None of these figures that they've trumpeted should be anything to boast about. They should be something to be ashamed of. It's disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. The letter goes on. I've already mentioned this one about Labour. You don't hear Labour talking about it. You hear Labour talking about it every single day. I follow a number of people in the Labour leadership and, you know, attached to the movement in general. It is discussed every single day. These figures are disgusting. Then it goes on to say, we took the unprecedented step, which had never been done before in history, to extend free school meals over the summer holiday. Yeah, okay, great. It should be done every year. It shouldn't be the first time. It shouldn't be unprecedented. And again, why did you take that unprecedented step? Because you were forced to. Because angry constituents barracked you. Because one of our footballers made it a public issue. because the newspapers ran with it. And I'll tell you something else. You'll be taking a second unprecedented step of funding it over Christmas as well, because this pressure needs to build again. I do not believe that the British people would stop the government starving these kids over summer and allow them to do it over Christmas. I do not believe that we will do that. Then it says the situation now is totally different. The majority of children are back in school. Not in Christmas, they're not, you idiot. They're not back in school over Christmas. That's the problem, isn't it? You know, oh dear, where we're up to. Because the situation now is totally different. The majority of... I can't even read now, I'm that pissed off. The majority of children are back in school and have therefore been benefiting from free school meals during term time as normal. Oh, so now what happens is... Oh, the little bears are they now? They hibernate. So they eat... And they eat during term time, and that allows them to winter for 2 weeks over Christmas without needing any food. Because that's how food works, is it? That's how it works. If you eat, you know, for 6 weeks, you can manage for 2 weeks without food. Is that what he's saying? You gods. We need to avoid creating a deepening cycle of state dependency. We inherited far too much of this from the last Labour government. Absolutely disgusting. Everyone is dependent on the state. The difference is, what do we actually get from the state? It turns out the people who need the state the most get nothing. And the people who don't need it at all, they get £500 million to help them eat in restaurants. Because that's another thing that needs pointing out more. The government, right, here's the thing. The government had spent £500 million on Eat Out to Help Out. So they encourage people who they can afford food for themselves so well that they can actually afford to have someone make it for them. Go to a restaurant, prepare it for them. They could pay for those to have food. And also it wasn't helping out because obviously that drove the second wave as well. Or helped to do so. But they can afford that. Now, it actually wasn't £500 million. It was £522 million. That overspend of £22 million is the amount needed to feed starving kids over Christmas. They will not pay £20 million to feed starving kids who do not get food over Christmas. They're reliant upon food banks to do that for them. But they can spend £522 million on upper middle class people to eat at a restaurant. It's disgusting. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button and write to your MP. And until next time, I'll see you later.